It's August 26, 2010, and at Lord's, the home of cricket, a game is about to start that will rock the cricketing world for years to come. It's England versus Pakistan, the final test of a 4-test series, England ahead 2-1. It was a start on day one that was plagued with delays from rain and bad light. Pakistan's captain Salman Butt won the toss. Pakistan were fielding first. Mohammad Amir and Mohammad Asif opening the bowling. It's a seemingly nervy start from Amir, with the very first ball going for 5 wides. On the first ball of the third over, he bowls a no ball that surprises commentators for how big it is. But the game continues on, with Amir almost getting a wicket soon after.
Oh, dropped. Oh, that wasn't difficult.
Mohammad Asif too would bowl a no ball in the 10th over. The footmarks must be a little slippery, some people thought. Asif would get Andrew Strauss in his next over.
That will do nicely. What a class bit of bowling from Mohammad Asif.
Stumps is called on day one due to bad light and then rain. England won for 39. When day 2 rolled around, Mohammad Amir had his eye in. After Amir had bowled just 2.5 overs, on that day, he would have 4 wickets. Huge problems for England. Though another big no ball would creep in soon afterwards. This young firebrand would finish with innings figures of 6 for 84. 4 of those were ducks. England were 7 for 102 at one point, but amazingly they would still finish with 446 runs in their first innings. A 332 run partnership between Jonathan Trott and Stuart Broad.
That could be out. No, it's out of the ground. Great shot from Stuart Broad.
Ends as the highest 8th wicket partnership in Test cricket history. Broad finished with 169, his highest ever Test score. Jonathan Trott was the final wicket of the innings, ending with 184.
He had to bat in the conditions when they were at the hardest. The best he's played for England. Tremendous innings.
In response, Pakistan wouldn't even make it to triple figures. Anderson and Broad, Finn and Swan, this bowling attack would exact some payback on their opponents.
Oh, would you believe it? Would you believe it?
After such a promising start, Pakistan was bowled out for 74 and forced to follow on. As darkness and rain descended on Lord's at the end of day 3, Pakistan were 4 for 41 at stumps.
That could be out. Yusuf's out. Gone. Caught deep square leg off Stephen Finn. The light fading a little bit.
See, when I said at the start of this video that this game was full of surprises, you might now see what I mean. But the darkest surprise was still to come. For at around this same time, a person in the background had been arrested and taken in for questioning. Someone we'll learn a bit more about later on. It was the morning of day 4 when the Lord's press box was abuzz with activity. A British tabloid newspaper, the News of the World, had published the results of their latest sting operation and splashed it on their front page. The allegations were that this Lord's Test match had been subject to spot fixing, and they alleged to have physical proof to back it up. Remember those no balls we saw earlier? They were at the heart of it, along with who could be involved. The cricketing world would slowly get its bearings, putting 2 and 2 together as disappointment and outrage began to permeate throughout. Despite these developments, this game would still be completed. Umar Akmal, the only Pakistan batter of note with 79 off 68, as Pakistan were bowled all out for 147, losing by an innings and 225 runs, the series 3-1. As the end of series ceremony is convened, most unusually in the Lord's long room, it's obvious the awkwardness and unease that is in the room as awards are handed out. A seedier but ever-present aspect of cricket that prowled in the shadows had been pulled into the light. The 2010 spot fixing scandal had begun, and the cricket world, it would never be the same again. The Qayyum Report, an old document that's likely unknown to some of you. Well, that's about to change. In the late 1990s, the Pakistan Cricket Board wrote to its chief patron for further assistance in investigating allegations of corruption within the Pakistan cricket team. To start, I must stress that corruption is a cricket-wide phenomenon. Although the focus of this video is Pakistan, It is not isolated to a specific team or country, as history itself has proven time and again. But around this time, the issue was thought to be particularly acute in Pakistan cricket. A justice of the Lahore High Court was appointed to carry out a judicial commission into the matter, Justice Malik Muhammad Qayyum. Earlier investigations had been found lacking, primarily because they didn't have the authority to compel people to talk, especially under oath. The Commission's biggest tasks were to probe allegations of betting and match fixing involving members of the Pakistan cricket team, and identify those people if possible, but also to recommend punishments and further corrective measures to stop things like this happening in the future. For clarity's sake, this is a perfect opportunity to quickly define the two main types of fixing related to our story: match fixing and spot fixing. In basic terms, match fixing is when the result of a match has been manipulated in order to achieve a predetermined result. In certain cases, this can be done for competitive reasons, like losing a game or two during a regular season to play an easier team in the finals, or so that the team can get concessions or draft a better player in the following season.
The 76ers select Ben Simmons.
Although this example is frowned upon, the particular type that we're looking at is when a match is fixed for financial gain. Every day, colossal amounts of money go through both regulated and unregulated sports betting markets around the world. In some instances, to make money on the side, a cricketer or cricketers have been caught colluding with other people and entities to try and fix the results of cricket matches. Spot fixing, on the other hand, is kind of like match fixing's cousin. Where match fixing looks to fix overall results of matches, spot fixing looks to manipulate specific aspects of a match, which can then be bet on in more obscure betting markets. The markets on these are as varied as you can imagine, from how much a batter will score or how many wickets a bowler will take, to how many runs will be scored or how many extras will be conceded over a certain few overs. It can even be as focused as betting on the specific outcome of a particular delivery in an over. In spot fixing, the difficulty in proving these instances is much more difficult, as it is conceivable that the only person on the field with prior knowledge that the fix is in is the person carrying it out on the field, although that's often not the case. The allegations investigated in this Qayyum report were particularly serious, from top-level players performing suspiciously badly during a match, a leading member of the team offering bribes to opposing players to underperform, and members of the Pakistan team allegedly asking the same of their own teammates. The commission involved the examination and cross-examination of significant figures within Pakistan cricket, present and former captains, prominent players, and members of the PCB administration, not to mention a few players from overseas. What Justice Qayyum explains and documents in his report is that there are no shortage of allegations flying around, including those involving huge matches, like even quarters and semi-finals of World Cups. But much of it could only be deemed as hearsay due to a lack of solid physical evidence. He also ran into the problem of some people saying one thing in public and then recanting or even saying something else under oath, as well as people being accused of having personal vendettas against one another. The report was published around 2 years after the commission was appointed, resulting in the lifetime ban of 2 players, bans from captaining Pakistan for others, as well as monetary fines. Although the report was an attempt to identify and sanction those involved, its critics state that it did little to conclusively stop such activity from happening in Pakistan cricket, nor did it go far enough to truly draw a line under the saga. And it's true that it wasn't the perfect undertaking. The commission was bound by time and finite resources. Because of this, many leads that were uncovered were never properly concluded before the report's release. Justice Qayyum himself would admit later in life that his personal preferences also stopped him from giving one player a harsher sentence. But also, certain parties were less than forthcoming in providing evidence, and many of the recommendations that Justice Qayyum gave to stop this from happening in the future weren't really followed up by the PCB at the time. Players that were implicated in this report would continue to be in the orbit of the PCB administration for years and decades later, leaving the legacy of this report itself in a bit of a grey area. But for us, the report is a yardstick, even as our story is set 10 years after it came out, setting the stage in regards to the Pakistan team and this issue in particular. In 2010 at Lord's, The three Pakistani players that were implicated were Captain Salman Butt and bowlers Mohammad Asif and Mohammad Amir. As I make this, we are coming up to the 15-year anniversary of this incident, so it would probably be a bit helpful if I gave you a little bit of context as to who these players were. Let's start with the captain. Salman Butt was a player who at an early age had been identified for greater things. Salman was a confident left-handed batter who was known for his efficient and stylish shot making, with a healthy hint of confidence. Salman came into the Test side a couple of years after the great Saeed Anwar retired, picking up the mantle of Test opener. Salman scored a 70 and a century within his first 4 Tests, both of them in Australia no less. But although he would be a mainstay of the side for a number of years, one wouldn't say that his run production was prolific.
And he's been dismissed, and Salman Butt has had a piece of that. He said thanks very much.
Spanning 33 Tests up until the Test we saw at the start of the video, he averaged around 30.4 with the bat, with 3 centuries and 10 50s. While those figures paint their own picture, it's more important for us to focus on his final few Tests leading up to that 2010 England tour, where Salman had averaged closer to 40 with the bat. In particular, Pakistan were the home team playing against Australia in England. In a losing first Test, Salman scored 63 and 92.
Nicely played, that single will give him his 50, in fact he'll earn 2. Another successful outing for Salman, but he's been a star for Pakistan team.
If some of you can remember, this was the Test where Shahid Afridi had come out of Test retirement to become Test captain, only to retire again after this loss. His Test captaincy lasting just the 1 match. Before that tour, played in England, they were whitewashed 3-0 in a turbulent series down under, where another great, Mohammad Yusuf, would step down from the captaincy, and where there was an internal investigation into reports of infighting within the Pakistan squad, leading to temporary suspensions and other repercussions for a number of people. Juxtapose all of this confusion and disruption, particularly towards Pakistan's captaincy position, against the seemingly reliable and ever-present figure of Salman Butt in the Test side. Or actually, I should say, Vice-Captain Salman Butt. Salman would take control of the side for the remainder of the Australia series in England and into their English tour itself. Where Salman's story up until this point could be seen as one of reliability over abundance in terms of his production, Mohammad Asif paints a vastly different picture, because on the field, he was both of those things, and more.
Got him!
When you watch Asif for the first time, with his overall appearance and general approach to the wicket, it doesn't really seem like there's much there. But then he releases the ball. With a cricket ball in his hand, Asif became something else. His no-nonsense, easy approach to delivering the ball allowed him to bowl long spells. His supple wrists allowed him to swing the ball both ways, while his expert command of his fingers to hold the ball in certain ways created sharp seam movement with unerring accuracy.
Bowled him! Clean bowled him! What a delivery! Beautifully bowled!
A quick YouTube search can show you how Asif has worked over some of the greatest batters of all time. This is against India's legendary batting attack of the 2000s. Bowlers like Jimmy Anderson have also stated how Asif's use of the wobble seam delivery pushed him to develop it into his own game. Asif was on course to be truly regarded alongside the best Pakistani pacers of all time. But Asif was no stranger to controversy. In 2006, he was taken out of Pakistan's Champions Trophy squad for failing a drug test for a performance-enhancing drug. A year's suspension was rescinded upon appeal as the PEDs were an ingredient in a protein supplement he had taken. In 2008, he was detained in Dubai on suspicion of possessing illegal substances. And in the same year, Asif was banned from playing in the IPL for a year, again for testing positive to a banned substance. If we can put these concerns about these two particular players to one side for a second, whether that be about the run production or outside controversy respectively. In 2010, both of them were going into the main part of their careers in terms of age. They were two players that Pakistan hoped to build around, at least for the next few years. In the most optimistic of hypothetical scenarios, it would be an environment in which the third player in this situation would grow into one of the premier fast bowlers of world cricket. And make no doubt about it, Muhammad Amir's early career was tracking in that trajectory. At 17, he took a fifer in Melbourne in the 2009 Boxing Day Test, against a batting lineup including Watson, Kadich, Ponting, Clark, Hussey and Haddon. Amir became the youngest bowler to reach 50 Test wickets at only 18 years of age. He met the Aussies again in England in July 2010 and gave them similar problems. Capable of hitting the mid-140s with a fast, snappy action, getting that late swing that can undo the best of them. He was the perfect foil for Mohammad Asif bowling from the other end. A young, bright player who had the world at his feet. But when the world learned about what had happened at Lord's, it wasn't Salman Butt's front foot in the papers or on TV screens. Although Mohammad Asif had done the same thing in the same test, it wasn't really his either. The iconic image that is imprinted in so many cricket fans' minds was that of Muhammad Amir's front foot overstepping. The weight and gravity of this image would hit the cricket world like a ton of bricks. Not just the allegations of spot fixing, but the implication that it involves one of the brightest stars of world cricket at such a young age. It was enough to send Michael Holding to the verge of tears live on TV, for people like Nasser Hussain to think, please don't let it be Muhammad Amir. They embodied the thoughts of many of us. I mean, he's just turning 18. Of course he's an adult in the eyes of the law in many countries, and he will be treated as such. But still, he's so young and impressionable, especially in that Pakistan dressing room. Mr. Holding and Mr. Hussain knew the turn that these three men had taken, and what it could now do to their careers and their legacies. The difference between the Qayyum report and these 2010 investigations in the UK was that this wasn't just hearsay with no physical proof, where certain leads weren't investigated due to constraints or had recommendations that weren't followed up upon. This case would be handled differently, not just by a different entity in a different country, but with a different standard of investigation and enforcement. Remember when we said at the start that someone in the background had been arrested during the test? Well, that someone was a person by the name of Mazhar Majid. Majid was, or is, a sports agent who at the time had dealings with Pakistani cricketers behind the scenes, working to help get some of them sponsorships when they played in the UK. He had been charged on suspicion of controversy to defraud bookmakers. It was alleged that Mazhar accepted 150,000 British pounds to arrange Pakistani bowlers Amir and Asif to bowl no balls at specific times in the match, and that captain Salman Butt was coordinating on the field to carry them out. There were also other Pakistani cricketers implicated, although they were never prosecuted here. The News of the World splashed the evidence of their claims on the front page of their newspaper, with specific mentions of who and when it would take place, accompanied by video, audio and other evidence of the deal that was passed on to the police. Majid himself was on the tapes.
You know what, the near balls are the easiest, yeah, and then the most clearest. Then there's no risk, there's no signal, and they're definitely happening. There's no signal, nothing. These three are definitely happening. Yeah, they've all been organised. Okay, so the first ball of the third over. The innings, yeah.
Okay, first ball of the third over of innings, right. So who's going to be opening?
Asif and Ahmed are going to be bowling.
So do we know which one?
That is going to be Ahmed. Ahmed's going to be bowled the first over. Yeah.
So the first ball
of the third over.
Of the third over.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any signal?
No signal. It will just happen. Then the 10th ball, the last ball, 6th ball of the 10th over.
Last ball of
the 10th over.
10th over. Who's bowling it?
Asif will be bowling it.
Okay. You've got the third no ball.
I'll give you the other no ball, yeah? Right? And you need to give me 10 more, okay?
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, fine. Alright?
Okay, so the third no ball is exactly the same.
Yeah, get that out of the way. What it is, I'll tell you right now what it is, yeah? Right? It's going to be Amir's third over.
Amir's third over.
And his third ball.
Third ball.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it'll be his third over though, not the third over of the day.
His third over. Okay, got it.
Now you can see the gravity of this. This incident was more serious than your average on-field indiscretion. The ICC would of course look into this from the cricketing aspect, but Majid and the cricketers were facing the prospect of jail time. Thus, these proceedings split off into two separate paths, both going in the same direction, one handled by the British authorities and the other handled by the ICC. The day after the Lord's Test, the 30th of August 2010, Majid was released on bail to be questioned at a later date. The Pakistan team would continue their tour. On September the 2nd, Butt, Asif and Amir were suspended from cricket by the ICC, pending the results of their investigation. Mazhar Majid was said to already be on an ICC anti-corruption watch list, as were certain Pakistani players. Mohammad Amir would soon be removed as a candidate for the ICC Emerging Player of the Year award. And after assurances that they would return to the UK as necessary, the three players would actually go home to Pakistan, where they were met with disgruntled fans at the airport. Pakistani political figures, specifically Pakistan's High Commissioner to the UK, would come out claiming that the players were a part of a setup, and that the ICC were playing to the gallery. But the ICC themselves, whether they were playing to a gallery or not, they had to be seen as taking this incident with the utmost seriousness. Not only as the head of the sport, but in the face of what was starting to come out publicly. As Pakistan started the limited overs portion of their tour, reports emerged of approaches by other suspicious people in the recent past to other teams. The approaches to gain the most attention involved Sri Lanka during the 2009 T20 World Cup and towards Australia during their 2009 Tour of England. To be crystal clear, all indications point to these approaches being reported to the ICC as per protocol, and those gains themselves haven't had any public indication of anything happening untoward. The preceding Pakistan tour to Australia, where Amir got that 5 for at 17 years old, was also under the microscope in light of recent events. Even this same tour wouldn't end without more controversy. The third ODI at the Oval was marred by allegations from the Sun tabloid newspaper that it may be compromised. It was said that bookmakers were aware of certain scoring patterns that eventually happened during the match. An investigation by the ICC would later clear that game and the teams of any wrongdoing. But in the meantime, the head of the PCB, Ijaz Butt, would publicly state that there was a conspiracy to defraud Pakistan and Pakistan cricket, and that English players were involved, as well as August cricket bodies. He would later retract that statement. But nevertheless, relations between the Pakistan Cricket Board and not only the ICC but the English Cricket Board were at a tenuous junction. The ECB had just recently allowed Pakistan to play their home fixtures in England after what had happened in Pakistan during Sri Lanka's recent tour there. With all of this going on, we can see that there's an air of suspicion and distrust that had formed around the situation and the wider game by extension. One could argue that this had brought things up at the time, like the PCB's lax handling and enforcement against corruption, into the open, and that was a good thing. Indeed, the ICC used this opportunity to send a message to the PCB to clean up their act or face sanctions. Pakistan would, in the weeks after this scandal, look to create a revised code of conduct. But getting back to the players' hearings. All three players initially appealed the suspensions, and a hearing was set to hear those at the end of October 2010. Although first scheduled to take place in Qatar, they would actually occur in Dubai in the UAE, which raised a particular issue for Mohammad Asif. Because remember, he was detained on drug-related offences a few years earlier, and was actually barred from entering the country again. He would withdraw his appeal, but nevertheless, the appeals of the other two players were dismissed anyway. The suspension stood. It was finally at this point that the PCB would suspend the central contracts of Butt, Asif and Amir. This happened around the same time that Pakistan would host South Africa in the UAE, where they would host games for many years to come. Pakistan would lose the ODI and T20 series, with the Test series ending up 0-0 with 2 draws.
And he's got that away beautifully. That is a very good shot indeed, exactly what he needed.
Even though Mazhar Majid was not really part of the ICC side of this investigation, those words of his caught on hidden camera would continue to play a role. Other footage from that same initial sting operation would be released by a local Pakistani news station, where Majid implicates a further 4 Pakistan players that he claims to work with. Now, I won't be sharing the names of these people. A simple Google search will help you find them if you really want to know. But at the time of the investigation, I bring it up as an indication from the outside of how deep the roots of this sting were speculated to be. The conclusive ICC hearing wouldn't start until early January 2011. The verdict was announced a month later. The ICC would ban all three players from ICC-sanctioned cricket for a number of years. Salman Butt, the captain of the team and seen as the on-field coordinator, was banned for 10 years. 5 of them suspended. Asif for 7, 2 years suspended, and Amir for 5, none suspended. So in effect, all of them would be eligible to play ICC-sanctioned cricket matches after 5 years. For Butt and Asif, it was subject to no further breaches occurring and undertaking an anti-corruption education program. It would mean that, for those two, age-wise, they would go through their peak earning years of their career banned from the sport. Appeals would be made to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, but they were either withdrawn or unsuccessful. The question would now turn to whether they would spend some of that time also behind bars. The 3 players and Mazhar Majid would eventually stand trial in May 2011 on charges of conspiracy to cheat and conspiracy to obtain and accept corrupt payments. Respectively, they were charges that carried a maximum sentence of 2 years imprisonment with fines and 7 years imprisonment with fines. The evidence presented towards prosecuting these 4 men was significant. Within it, it included not just the audio and video footage that was publicly released, but text messages and correspondence behind the scenes. The most damning was perhaps the physical notes of currency that was used in the sting operation. They had actually been marked and were subsequently found in the hotel rooms of some of the accused. The other evidence submitted was also said to include exchanges pertaining to other tours involving Pakistan. Outside of this one in question, Muhammad Amir and Mazhar Majid pled guilty, something that the judge would state as a mitigating factor in the sentencing, as were the bans handed down by the ICC for the 3 cricketers. In November 2011, the verdict was handed down. Mazhar Majid was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months in jail. Salman Butt was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months. Muhammad Asif was sentenced to 1 year, and Muhammad Amir was sentenced to 6 months. All of them had to serve half of their sentences in a UK prison before being considered for release on licence. It must be stressed that, although Salman Butt staunchly maintained his apparent innocence throughout this process, he was adjudged to be at the centre of this scheme. At sentencing, Justice Cook would say the following regarding his actions, including mention of those other instances outside the bounds of this case. Quote, "I sentence you for matters covered by the narrowed indictment alone, relating to the no balls in the Lord's Test match. But I cannot ignore the fact that these were not isolated incidents. It is clear to me that you were the orchestrator of this activity, as you had to be as captain. As I have already said, you bear the major responsibility for the corrupt activities along with Majid. The evidence of the text exchange between you and Majid in the West Indies in May 2010 shows your involvement in such activities outside of the scope of the period covered by the indictment. Because of your leadership status, your direct involvement with Majid, and your key role in directing the corrupt activities, you are more culpable than either of your 2 bowlers." End quote. Justice Cook was also particularly scathing on how Salman had used his position as a senior leader and captain of the team to involve a young Muhammad Amir as well as others in the scheme. Muhammad Amir was so young, in fact, that he would serve his sentence in a facility for young offenders. But he would still have to face the weight of his crimes, both then and forever. So what happened to these 3 cricketers afterwards? Well, to start, all 3 of them were released from prison after they had served half of their sentences. All 3 would eventually admit to carrying out the crimes that they were accused of, but their path back to the sport varied. For Salman Butt, the player who was handed the captaincy in the wake of 2 former greats to guide Pakistan into the future, he was permitted to return to domestic cricket in 2016. Although over the next few years he would put his name up for contention with some good form, Salman would not play another game for the national team in any format. As I speak now, he continues to be involved in the sport today, initially in a coaching and governance capacity, but now more in the media, giving his views on the modern game, both online and on TV. For Muhammad Asif, a player who had the potential to be regarded as one of Pakistan's greatest bowlers, he too wouldn't play another game for Pakistan in any format. after playing for a couple of years in the domestic circuit, he would move to the US. Mohamed Amir was the only one of these three to play for the national team again. In early 2016, he returned to their limited overs teams, and in a weird twist of fate, almost 6 years after the scandal happened at Lord's, Mohamed Amir would make his return to the test side at that very same ground, taking 3 for 104 for the match in a winning effort against England.
Bowled in! All over Mohamed Amir!
He would earn caps for Pakistan in all three formats over the coming years. The second half of his career is likely most remembered for that opening spell of the 2017 Champions Trophy final, where the world got a glimpse of his true talent.
In the air, gone!
Needs to answer.
Oh, taken, caught behind, crossing!
For his actions, Mohamed would lose years off his finite cricketing career. It would have been years to learn, grow, and to become the best cricketing version of himself. His number of test caps currently stand at 36, but I often wonder what he would have looked like if he got to 70. For me, it will go down as one of the biggest and most heartbreaking what-ifs of the modern cricket era. I know that I'm not the first person to talk about this scandal. There's heaps of videos, reports, and articles written about it, but most of them end here, encapsulating this situation as something that has been and gone and is almost solely tied to that era and these three players themselves. But honestly, that's not really where it ends. The harshest aspect of this whole scandal is the impact and legacy it left on Pakistan cricket, supporters, and the wider sport as a whole, and that it's felt most by the people who just support the team and weren't the slightest bit involved in this. I want to read to you some final remarks from Justice Cook that strikes at the heart of what I'm trying to say here. Quote, "The corruption in which you engaged, in a pastime the very name of which used to be associated with fair dealing on the sporting field. It is the insidious effect of your actions on professional cricket and the followers of it which makes the offences so serious. The image and integrity of what was once a game but is now a business is damaged in the eyes of all, including the many youngsters who regarded the three of you as heroes and would have given their eye teeth to play at the levels and with the skills that you had. Now, whenever people look back on a surprising event in a game or a surprising result, followers of the game who have paid good money will be led to wonder whether there has been a fix and whether what they have been watching is a genuine contest between bat and ball. In Pakistan, where cricket is the national sport, the ordinary follower of the national team feels betrayed by your activities, as do your fellow countrymen in this country. You, Butt, Asif and Amir have let down all of your supporters and all of the followers of the game." End quote. Our game, to line the pockets of a few people, was forced to swallow a dose of poison, and these words from Justice Cook shows us the lasting scars that it left. We cannot ever let memory of this incident slip into the darkness, because that's exactly how these things start again. The threat is still as real as ever, and if we're not careful, the next dose might prove more fatal. Hey guys, firstly, sorry. That one was a bit more serious and depressing than usual, right? But nevertheless, I think it's really extremely important to talk about. Let me know if you want more videos on incidents like this, because unfortunately, there's more of them. There's a like button below to show your support further. And please, consider sharing it with someone who might like it also. It'll help get the video out to more people like us. If you want to balance out all the negativity from this video, watch this one on Pakistan's 2024 series against England. Itself Watch this one on Pakistan's 2024 series against England. Itself part of a wider series that I'm working on at the moment. Cheers for the support as always, and until the next one, take care, and I'll see you soon.